Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully everyone is finishing up their meal. It was fantastic, and on to the dessert. So if you haven't finished, though, please keep eating, and we'll keep things moving along. But want to get right into our program and introduce the governor. And rather than go through and go through his bio, which I'm sure most of you have heard and are familiar with, I want to give a little story and to kind of give you some insight into economic development and how it works, and why we're so blessed to have a governor who's focused on economic development, who gets it and understands it. So if you go back to the first day in office when after Governor Hutchinson was elected and he takes office, he had 6 phone calls that he wanted to make that day. 6 cold calls to CEOs of companies that we had identified as, potentially looking to make expansions and, potentially, move their operations from one state to another or expand on existing growth. And a lot of times for governors, it's not easy to hear the word no. So some governors don't take too well to that. This governor doesn't mind. He'll pick up the phone and make those calls that, a lot of times you hear a no on the other end, but you know what? It's developed a relationship, and each time you hear a no, it brings you that much closer to a yes or a maybe, and that opens the door for us to get in and have those conversations. So one of those 6 phone calls he made on that first day in office was to a gentleman named Ron Cohen. Ron Cohen is the CEO of a company called Sig Sauer. If any of those are in the audience who are familiar with the firearms industry, Sig Sauer is a firearm manufacturer based in the state of New Hampshire. So the governor makes a call that day and develops a relationship with Mr. Cohen. From that call and that relationship that developed, we started working an active project with them. And they were looking to do their first expansion outside of the state of New Hampshire, and they were looking somewhere in the southeast. Fast forward, and I won't go through the whole details, but a year later to the day of the governor taking office, we were in Las Vegas. It's what's called SHOT Show. It's a firearm manufacturing trade association show in Las Vegas. And that day we announced a project with Sig Sauer that was going to bring 80 jobs in an ammunition facility for Sig Sauer to the state of Arkansas. So the work didn't stop there, though. So we continued to build on that relationship. We spent time with Ron and his team in Las Vegas, and we helped them go through the channels to make sure that they were online to purchase the building and getting the workforce they need. And so fast forward to a year later. So again, this past January, we're back in SHOT Show, and we're sitting down to dinner with Ron and his team, and we're talking about the project and asking how things are going. He said, "It's been fantastic. The workforce is tremendous. We're getting folks who are retired from the Little Rock Air Force Base who are coming over, the skill sets that we need. It's fantastic. In fact, Governor, that little 80-job project, by the time we're into the middle point of this year, we're going to be up to 150 jobs at that one facility." So we said, wow, this is fantastic. So we get into a little bit more of the conversation in the background about why he was interested in Arkansas. And Ron opened up and said, that call meant so much to me on that first day. And I compared it to the governor of my state at that time. Here we are, the second largest private employer in the state of New Hampshire, and the governor of that state had never been by their facility, had never acknowledged their presence. So fast forward to November of this year, that governor of that state didn't get reelected. A new governor came in. The new governor had heard about this project in Arkansas and all these jobs that were being created in Arkansas, and the first time outside of the state of New Hampshire. So the governor-elect, Governor Sununu, picks up the phone and he calls Ron Cohen. He says, Ron, I hear about this project in Arkansas, and, I'm worried. We got 2,000 employees here in New Hampshire. Tell me what can I do as governor to make sure that I can support you and help you out the best I can. And Ron Cohen tells this story, and, Governor won't tell it, so I'll tell it for him. Ron Cohen message back to Governor-elect Sununu was, "You can be more like Governor Asa Hutchinson of Arkansas." So it's about those relationships that he's built as our governor that's going to propel us in economic development. So it's my honor to introduce the CEO of the great state of Arkansas, Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Great story. I'm glad you shared it and embellished a little bit. Mike is doing an incredible job. When we recruited him from Florida, I knew Arkansas was lucky to have him, But after 2 years on the job doing an incredible work, we're fortunate to have someone of his talent and love for the state of Arkansas that he's demonstrated. Give Mike a round of applause. This conference is one of my favorite. I think ever since I came here a couple years ago and did karaoke and hadn't been invited back, it has been one of my favorites, and the First Lady's also, because she really loves karaoke. But I hear y'all had a great time, and I wanted to acknowledge Senator Missy Irvin, who I understand is here, who is the Rural Advocate of the Year, so congratulations, Missy. Very proud of you. And we got those unpaved roads funding done, so you ought to be happy with that. Commissioners, thank you for your leadership, each of you. You serve us well, and they have an important job that really help guide our thinking on rural Arkansas, rural development. Obviously, the grants are an important part of it, but I value their leadership and appreciate them. In our office, in the governor's office, I want you to know you are very, very well represented. We have Bruce Campbell, who is a former director of rural development in my office, handling key appointments and commissions. Of course, Amy Fetcher is former director of this conference and does a great job for us as our Chief Transformation Officer, continues to work with Mike at AEDC. Alex Johnson, our current leader here. So you are all well represented in our office, and your voice is very important to us. But it also has a rather receptive audience with me because I grew up in rural Arkansas. I grew up in Gravette, small town of 1,000, 3.5 miles out in the country, half mile down a dirt road on 280 acres that I just loved. I grew up there as a young boy. My parents taught me important values of hard work and how to clean out a chicken house, how to help your neighbors, how to, take care of the cattle and break the ice. And we did all the things on a farm. But it was also important to community and going to school and participating in the community of a small town like Gravette. And you realize very quickly that it's the church, it is the school, it is the Friday night sports. The things that hold a community together are very, very important. I get choked up talking about Gravette. And so you fast forward a little bit, and today Arkansas is a growing state. We have the world's largest retailer here, but still it is our rural communities that provide the strength of Arkansas. And so when we have an initiative and we want to push it through, you might take, whenever you look at our standards for education and a 350 limit that you're supposed to have for a school district. You know that? And of course, when I became governor, we said we need to change that law. We need to make sure that if you're academically performing and you're financially sound, then there's nothing magic about 350. And that we ought to let schools survive if they're wanting to continue and they can ask for a waiver. We gave them a process because schools are the root of a community. They're the lifeblood of a community. And so we're doing pretty well in Arkansas. Now, being governor is a pretty exciting thing. And you think you're doing a pretty good job every once in a while, and then you decide you're going to run for re-election, and then you issue a letter asking for support, and you get a letter back. So here's the letter I just got back yesterday. It is from a constituent, of course. I am on a limited income and unable to contribute this year. I do intend to support you until somebody better comes along. So I approach you today very humbly. You can't get too excited about yourself in this job. But I do think we're doing well whenever you look at a 3.5% unemployment rate in Arkansas, the lowest in recorded history of this state. When you look at 55,000 or 56,000 jobs have been created since I've been governor, and they're all over this state, in rural Arkansas as well as in the urban areas that we're creating these jobs. And so let's look at the future, though, and I know what you're interested in is the vitality of your community and continuing the growth, the prosperity, the values of rural Arkansas. What are the keys to our economic future in rural Arkansas? First of all, education is an absolute essential that we need to continue to improve upon and to keep it strong in our rural schools. And I just finished my 4th computer coding tour through Arkansas high schools. And we intentionally, whenever we do that, I go to a large school, but I also will go to small schools. And whenever we go to the small schools, I think it was Yellville Summit I went to this year. I went to Pine Bluff, and I went down to Sheridan. And so we went to all kinds of schools in this computer coding tour. I see a number of our legislators over here that went with us on those tours, and thank you for your support of it. But let's just look at Sheridan, Arkansas. Sheridan, Arkansas is an example of a school that we mandated that computer coding be taught in every high school in Arkansas, rural or urban school. We didn't require the students to take the class. We required it to be offered, but we kept in mind the rural schools that might not have the teachers, and so we allowed it to be offered through Virtual Arkansas. In Sheridan, the first year it was offered, they had 1 student, and that 1 student was taking it online. The next year, the superintendent, or the principal actually, had a teacher come and wanted a job, and they said, all right, we'll give you a job in the Sheridan School District, but you got to agree to teach computer science. Well, the person really wanted the job, so he agreed to teach computer science and got his summer professional development and got certified for it and taught the next year. They had 30 students. They went from 1 to 30 students because of a teacher. And then the next year, after we went there, we held our school assembly, they'll have 60 students next year. Bright, sharp students, rural Arkansas, and that can be duplicated all across this state from Manila down to Lake Village. And it's all about offering it. It's all about encouraging the students to take it, and it's also about getting the teachers. And we recognize how difficult it is sometimes for a rural school district to recruit a teacher. And so we are offering through the Department of Education $400,000 in stipends for teachers that will become capable and have the professional development to teach computer science. That will give them a $2,000 stipend extra for teaching computer science. That will be an encouragement to the rural schools in Arkansas and will help them recruit the teachers that they need. So we've pushed that in rural Arkansas. You look at the opportunity for our students to go from high school into college. Some of them their parents did not have that experience. They're uncertain about whether they can afford it, and so they're looking at different options. This last year, through the Arkansas General Assembly, we passed Our Futures Grant, which combined a couple of ineffective grant programs into one. So it wasn't a big push of new money, but we made it a more effective program into Our Futures Grant that tells every high school student that if you enter a high-need field of study, a high-need field of study like computer science, but it could be nursing, it could be welding, if you enter something that's going to lead to a job, then we're going to pay 2 years of college, all tuition, and mandatory fees paid. That gives them the confidence to go and get their education, and hopefully they'll go on even beyond that. And of course, we do put a requirement on the 2-year college that they provide mentors to increase the chance of those students being successful. Secondly, we require them to stay in Arkansas and work for a couple of years after they leave college. It's a good bargain. We need to emphasize that in our communities. Education is a key. We're going to continue to make that available and strong and successful in our rural communities. Secondly, a key ingredient for economic future is to focus on the supply chain. We go up to Magnus, Arkansas, population 200. One of my first economic development announcements there, and they're announcing a feed mill in Magnus, Arkansas. And of course, a feed mill is part of the supply chain of a larger enterprise, but they located that feed mill in a town of population 200. And of course, when we were there, we had the senator there, we had the governor there, we had the congressman there, we had all of the elected officials there, but the mayor stole the show, because the mayor of Magnus just simply stood up and he said, "I've only been mayor 4 months, and look at all these people I brought together." But it's the supply chain. Mike Preston mentioned Sig Sauer that we recruited. Firearms industry came into Jacksonville. But as I was up near Mountain Home, the CEO of Microplastics that is in Flippin and in Melbourne, they came up to me and said, "Thanks for getting Sig Sauer in, because we're in their supply chain up in Melbourne, Arkansas, and they got a contract with Sig Sauer." You see how it fits together? And so whenever we announce Rui Garment Company out of Shandong province in China, that's going to be locating not in northwest Arkansas, not in Jonesboro, not in Little Rock, but they're going to be locating in the Delta. They're going to be located in Forest City, Arkansas, that will create up to 800 jobs, $400 million investment, and guess what? They're going to buy 200,000 tons of cotton each year. Now, Robert Morey computed this in terms of bales of cotton, because that's what people relate to, and it's about 880,000 bales of cotton per year. And so that's the supply chain. That helps us all through the state. It helps in our agricultural community. But who will be in the supply chain of these large industries that we bring in? It could be in every small community in Arkansas that you're able to compete. Your entrepreneurs, your small businesses can be in that supply chain. So when you see our trips overseas, when you see us recruiting industry, don't think, well, that's just the big stuff that they're bringing in. You're in the supply chain. It will help us to grow all across the state of Arkansas. Education, focus on the supply chain. Thirdly, let's remember we are the natural state. I take more joy in it every day. Tourism is our number 2 industry. Kane Webb's doing a great job with that. We're now promoting tourism in the Delta, which has incredible opportunities there. And tourism, whether it's the small communities, the larger communities, can benefit from the tourism and what we maintain as our natural state. So I'm excited about that aspect of our economic development as well, the small hospitality, restaurants and hotels that benefit from it, the flea markets and all the other small businesses that hinge upon it. And we clearly have it. As you know, whenever we brought in Rui, the chairman was asked, well, what was the key to coming to Arkansas? And his answer was, well, you got good cotton. And I know that our cotton's going to make their fine apparel even better. But we got good cotton, so as a supply. But he said also, you know, you competed with the economic incentives. He said every state offers economic incentives, and you competed there. But he said the key was just the relationship that we built with Arkansas. And relationships seals the deal. And so whenever I had the Ambassador Lee, who's the Consul General from Houston, I met with him, building that relationship, and he says, you know, Governor, I've never been duck hunting, and I like to go duck hunting. And I said, all right, we'll see if we can set it up. So we set it up down in McGee, and he, the chairman and one of his colleagues came down there. We had a group. We went out in some of the finest timber hunting you can imagine. And we were out there in the water, and you could see them early in the morning, big smiles on their faces because you see that nature, and you call the ducks in, and you see those beautiful mallards coming into the water, and all of a sudden the guns go off, and the mallards fall, and I look over there, and our Chinese friends didn't even get their guns up. And the guide turns to him and says, have you ever done this before? And they said, we practiced yesterday. But you could just see the joy they were having in the nature in Arkansas. And so finally these ducks came in, and they landed over by my Chinese colleagues, and so we couldn't shoot them. And so we're all looking at them as to how they're going to handle this, and those ducks took off, and they just unloaded the sky with their buckshot. And all those ducks peacefully flew away. But incredible opportunity for us to market this state. Whenever I go to China and I talk about our diamond mine, the only one in North America, and guess what? We're finding diamonds there. And that's exciting. We have a lot to sell in Arkansas, and much of it is in rural Arkansas. The fourth key is infrastructure. And I know you had some legislators that had a good panel yesterday, and highways came up, and we didn't get it through this session of the General Assembly. In my view, we need to bring a highway plan to the voters in 2018 and put it on the ballot and give the voters an opportunity to develop a highway plan. And so I hope that you all will be open to that. I know there's some groups that are working on that, and I'd like to see the same plan that was presented to the General Assembly that narrowly did not get out, that be presented on the ballot and give the voters that opportunity to vote on that plan. But the highways are important to rural Arkansas. As you drive around the farm-to-market roads, the overlay that we need to have in rural Arkansas is critically important. And so even though we have enhanced our highway funding with $200 million more in funding with the federal match and with what we're doing, we still need to have more for a long-term highway plan. And I hope that you all will be supportive of that. And finally, in rural Arkansas, to keep a strong economy and for our future, we need to have a health care system that works. And I hope you understand that when I became governor, we had a health care expansion in this state that was on life support. We were not sure that it was going to be sustained. I put my name behind it, and I said we need to reform it. We need to make it affordable, but we need to continue that which is so critical to rural Arkansas, and that is Arkansas Works. The General Assembly passed that. We have reformed it. We have a work requirement in there. We're controlling the numbers to control the costs for the future. But it's something that is so critical to the rural hospitals across this state, so important to rural Arkansas in terms of individual health care. And I talk to people across the country, and they look, I've interviewed by the Washington Post, I've interviewed by national publications, and they say, you've got something unique in Arkansas, and while insurers are fleeing other states, they're staying in Arkansas on the exchange. You're working, you've improved health care in this state, and what are the keys to it? And I'm able to explain what's happened because of what we've done together. And so that's an important ingredient for the future, and whatever happens in Washington, we have Arkansas Works here that will complement and will go alongside really whatever they do in Washington, but we're going to push them in the right direction to be able to sustain our program in Arkansas, to go along with the reform that we've put into place to give us the flexibility that we need to manage Arkansas Works. And so those are 5 keys I wanted to share with you today. I know you know those, but I want you to understand that I appreciate them as well. After the session was over with, I wanted to get out of Little Rock, and I wanted to get out to rural Arkansas. And so the first opportunity I had was to go down to Hampton to the Hogskin Parade in Calhoun County. And I went there to the Hogskin Parade, and it was the middle of the day, but I was shaking hands, and this lady came up to me and said, "Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Well, okay." And so she gave me a big hug, and then she stepped away and said, "Now just who are you?" And so I'm reminded once again that once you get out of the beltway of Little Rock, people have a lot going on in their lives. It's more than just what's happening in the legislature, what's happening in the agencies of government, but it's work, it's responsibility, it's family, it's community. And so I recognize that, and it's with that humble spirit that I speak to you today and express my appreciation for rural Arkansas and your leadership to keep us strong. Thank you very much.